Hey guys, this is Tina B.
And Charmaine G.
We're here to talk about the messiness of life. It's ugly.
And it's raw.
It's real.
And it's a freaking game.
It's whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
This is us.
And our gift to you.
Good evening. Good evening.
You know what, fellow viewers, listeners, and viewers now?
Now she can finally say viewers.
I know, I'm not going to get corrected.
I love it.
So I have to tell you, Tina walks in today, and people have thought I've been at work for a few days. Like, they get surprised when they're like, "Oh, you've been here the whole time?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm actually working." But she walks in, you guys, like an angel. Oh, look at her. Can you?
It's more jellyfish-ish.
No,
but I'm digging it. I'm feeling it.
No, she has this white flowing dress on. Her hair looked like a Charlie's Angel. It was just on point tonight.
I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you should feel it. And I'm not going to lie to you. When you walk out of the house, you feel put together. You carry yourself differently, don't you?
Oh, my goodness. Mm-hmm. I do. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I feel good, there's like a skip in my step.
Yes,
I'm
confidence.
walking a little lighter. Yeah. I'm feeling, I have a lot to be grateful for. So I get that. That's what I get. I get gratitude. I get gratitude for my life. Like, I'm so lucky I have this car. I'm so happy I have, I just get grateful like that.
Oh, I want to bite that. I don't know what that meant.
Make a list.
You do that every day, and I try to, in my heart and in my mind, and I get to, the 15th, umpteenth topic in my mind for the 15th second. My mind is 100 miles an hour at all times.
Well, join the club.
I've been
Membership
diagnosed.
Cards in the mail.
I've been
Doesn't
diagnosed.
go away. It seems like it gets worse.
Let's check in, Tina B.
We're talking about what, this last weekend? We stayed home because the weekend before that was lots of stuff going on. I did, I went on a scavenger hunt of sorts. I bought a bunch of stuff on Facebook Marketplace from all over, Bloomington, Ivan, Santa Clara,
they were so
Washington.
Happy you showed up.
Who?
I'm not gonna. The people you bought from, because you know how many times. I want that. I'm interested in lines of people, and then no one shows, and it's almost like peddling off their own stuff.
I bought a beehive cookie jar. That was a gift for my daughter's best friend.
Oh.
Because she collects bees and beehive stuff, and I couldn't pass it up. And I'm constantly finagling with them.
Ooh, good on you.
I almost said something very racist right there. But anyway, I am constantly haggling with them, okay? And then what else did I buy? I bought this 1960s makeup thing. It's round and
Caboodle?
It unzips and it.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
it's my mother had one and I just wanted it. I bought it for $3.
Did it smell like the 60s too?
No, but the lady says she has others that she was going to fish out and see if I wanted them. I only paid $3 for it.
That's a good deal online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready for the yard sales to kick back up when the weather gets good.
Yeah, I love yard selling. I'm on the hunt for frames always. And then what else did we get? We got a bench from Miss Charmaine G. That's now in my house.
It just helps me not have a yard sale, which is
I'm sort of saving that piece of furniture because Sam really likes the cedar chest. And we're going to paint the outside and put new handles on it.
What about the reupholster?
I don't know if we'll do that. I might. I have to look at. I have a staple gun. I have stuff to do that with.
It's very easy. I've reupholstered that lid probably 5-10 times.
I would like to do that for her. So that's a piece that. What else did I get? For crying out loud, a bunch of things. Anyways, we went scavenger hunting all over St. George and bought that stuff, and then went home and I did some drawing, which
what an R&R kind of a weekend.
Well, I did sell a dresser. I put it online on Facebook, and it literally was sold in 45 minutes and had 100 people asking after it.
You priced
I'm
it
happy
too
to
low.
say it went to a single mom.
Oh.
And she loved it. She was so grateful for it. And I gave her some other stuff too, because I get stuff handed to me. Miss Charmaine's very generous. And And then I pay it forward.
Yeah.
So
That's what
it's
we
beautiful.
do.
Yeah.
Money, I was telling Jer, like, I'm not going to leave this world with anything, and it really doesn't hold value to me. I have sentimental things, but if I have enough and I'm meeting the needs of my family, my children, it's game on. Like, anybody can have anything I have.
You're cute. I believe that. That's an honest
Doesn't
remark
mean
you just
anything
made.
to me.
I have things that mean stuff to me, but I try not to let myself get too attached to stuff. I noticed that being a single mom and not being able to afford a lot of stuff, when I started to be, when I was first a single mom in California, I was making great money and it wasn't about that. But coming out of that second marriage with Samantha, we struggled, and I was a full-time student at that time too. Ooh. That's when we were living very lean. So we weren't just buying stuff because we wanted it. We were buying stuff because we needed it, and that put the kibosh on a lot of stuff. Luxury. It's a luxury problem. However, I really like, I can go overboard. Oh, I've always wanted one of those. I don't need it.
Yeah.
But there it is in my garage. And
Impulsive?
Every time Greg is just like,
what are you doing? Why are you bringing this home? What are you going to do with it?
Please start getting rid of stuff. So I've gotten rid of stuff.
You.
I've taken a lot of stuff to like the dump. I've given it away. I've taken it to the, Goodwill and all that.
For you. Sorry. I have lice. I don't. That was a joke.
There's plexiglass right now.
I know. My hair got caught up in the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to admit to you, I had a pretty boring weekend, and I loved every second of it. I ended up cooking for a herd of like 12 people, and it was fun. It was relaxing. Spaghetti.
That's easy.
Yeah, it really was.
For a lot of people.
It really was. And I have this certain ingredient that I always put in, and everybody's like, I love your sauce. Like, it's amazing. Yeah.
I want to know.
I'll just make it for you, and then I'll just let you guess.
I am Italian. There's a warning on that.
That is true already. So with that being said, I actually had a friend over, and I gave her a bunch of business clothes because she has come out into the workforce, and she has raised 5 kids on her own. Nice. And she's, in that place and stage in life to where she's not put herself first in a long dang time, nor does she have the means to do it. So I said, here you go, dump.
Good for you.
And I didn't even barely even touch my closet. This is the problem. I will admit on air, my addiction is feeling at shopping. And it's for irrelevant things, and I will give it away as soon as I buy it, but it makes me feel satisfied. When I'm sad, I buy a $5 shirt. When
little retail therapy.
Yeah. When I'm pissed, I'll buy a $5 whatever. If I want to congratulate myself, I want to reward myself, buy a little something. It's not over the top. It's not like out of control because I've got to raise my family too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I always say 2 for 1. I buy 1, the other one gets 2. The other people, I got to give it away.
That's nice. I've been the recipient of things throughout my life and with you. Me too. It's really nice. It's a nice thing. So the other thing that happened this week, it happened last week before the weekend came up, which is probably a good segue into, I'm going to give Charmaine the stage to introduce the topic and ask me questions maybe. But I'm not taking charge. I have 0 notes.
She's naked. Naked on notes.
I know enough about this subject
that it's ingrained in my blood.
Yeah, totally. Like I could
Some psychologists actually have identified it as a mood. I was reading on that today because it's a compilation of feelings that is a recurring thing.
Okay, so tell them what it is.
Resentment.
Talking about resentment.
Yeah. And resentment is definitely a compilation of negative emotions, be it anger, discomfort, rejection, bitterness. It hosts itself, and it's reoccurring on an event or a person, something that stimulated that feeling. And it's a constant thing. It's not like when we're talking and Skype comes in and we're over here going, what the hell's that about? It's just a trigger. It's a feeling. But the deep-seated resentment is where we're probably going to deep dive today. Because we all have annoyances. We all have things that are, that rubbed me the wrong way, or that hurt my feelings, or that wasn't cool. those are surface, but resentment is something that kind of can poison you at the same time.
Yeah, and I can recall the first time that wasn't a word I'd heard a lot throughout my life. But when I kept hearing it was in a 12-step program because they have you, that's part of the step work that you do. You look at your resentments and it turns out that it's really just all your fault anyway. I'm just kidding. There's a lot that goes on. You just look at your part in it. I'm just being funny. I don't want to defame the 12 steps.
Yes, of course not.
But when I heard resentment, I was like, what exactly is that? Mm-hmm. And it is exactly what I was like, oh, you mean like angry obsession. Mm-hmm. Being angry and script writing, it's all of that. Mm-hmm. And so I looked it up. I looked the word up years ago.
Even though you felt it for...
I just didn't, I never used that word to describe what it was.
Right.
I just used like pissed off, angry, hateful, negative. So I looked up that word years ago, and it is to resentment. So break it down. Means to something that I'm trying to not use
repetitive.
Right. It reoccurs. It's something that happens over and over. And a resentment is when you have anger or a bad feeling towards somebody, and it's a resentment specifically is that when you're feeling it over and over and over.
Reoccurring, for sure. Yeah, and it again, it's not a surface thing. It's not a one-time shot emotion. I'm going to share a story. I'll give you an example of resentment because I like to say that I'm pretty level-headed. I can brush things off, but when you deep-seated things that make me feel the most is when you intentionally harm someone I love. And, I can have a negative environment, but I can change that, right? I can't change people. Mm-hmm. I can only change how I feel about the situation and have that, but it's taken me years to get there. But I'm going to share a story about a local news event that happened. And you guys will understand. You'll probably relate to this because it is literally a shit show. So my brother, youngest brother, kindest, most gentlest, innocent, I call him, he has the patience of Job. Like he's dealt with so much in his life. He ends up marrying this girl, which day one, I wasn't a fan. You could tell she was on the spectrum of psycho somewhere. And I was not drawn to her. And I first met her and she was like, I know you're jealous of me. I'm like, don't know ya.
Get out.
Yeah. So it was not.
Take that shit home.
It was not a love relationship. It was love, what the are you relationship. So when that happened, they started off, as we all do, no income, scraping, getting by. They brought on children into the world, and that's when I knew his life was over. I was like, oh my gosh, she's pinned to her. Damn.
It's funny what other people can see. I mean, I'm assuming that it ended in divorce.
Horrible.
Okay. But it's funny what other people can see, or what we allow other people to tell us what they see.
Right.
And not always.
Well, no.
They're usually people who don't have a vested interest in who we are anyway, but we just take that shame and guilt and judgment and run right towards the field goal with it.
Well, yeah. And then you've got others that are making you feel that way. Like my mom at the same time, bless your heart, I agree with you now. But at the time I told you, I was like, bah, no, I'm not doing that. Because she was like, you got to love him anyway.
No.
And you're making it harder on your brother. So I did. I kind of was just courteous and I would distance myself. They didn't live here locally until, a while. But when they brought in children and her theatrics, her things that she conducted herself, I couldn't stand to be around. It climaxed to the point where she would have, she had this, she's very, very extreme. Remember when we talked about that topic, just extremist. And my brother, innocently watching him on the outside looking at, I don't know how much I want to share just because it's his business, but for the most part, I was involved because I cared about him so much. My mom calls me one morning and was like, hey, I just wanted to tell you, beep, I won't say her name. She was assaulted. And I was like instantly, at first you're shocked. That feeling didn't come over me. It was like listening intently. She was like, yeah, she was on a running trail. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. She got off work a little bit early. And, so she's at the hospital right now. Cameron's got the kit. Oops. And we literally, and I said, Mom, it's a lie. Charmaine, you cannot talk like that. And I said, I get that. I totally have empathy, and immediately I just feel like something's off here. Like something's not right.
So you already had a resentment against her.
Oh, yeah.
And then do you still?
Well, no. So here's the thing.
Okay.
I've come full circle with it because, and it's taken a long dang time. They were married for over a decade. And so what she would do to him and belittle him and all these little things was the thing that the catalyst that built the resentment. But this was the climax. So I tempered my mood and said, you know what? You're absolutely right. Called my brother and said, bring the kids over here. Take care of your wife. They're already at home now, but she's feeling suicidal. And so she goes into the B-Med unit, and it's almost like a storyline, like you're watching this movie, but you're in it. And so I have the kids, and it went on for like 2 weeks. People at her work would step in and watch the kids. Members of the church would come in and
so
bring
she was
food.
falling apart. She was, if B-Med was involved in her path, she was a basket case.
Oh yeah,
or close to being.
Yeah. Close to being.
Okay.
Yeah. Even used the victim's recovery, and the state helped pay for all of these things as a victim, right? And this is in the news. This is in the local news in 2013. So I'll let you guys expand on this story if you want to. But so in the meantime, in the background, this whole thing is like hard for me to chew. I'm sitting there going, okay, just put your best foot forward, let it go, Cameron. And he just was blank. Like he was pale. He was like, he just couldn't even see straight for weeks. Right. And he asked me if I could bring the kids over. I need to go visit Sarah. She's back in the B-Med unit. I said her freaking name. Anyway, and I said, sure. He comes over, and he leaves. He comes right back in about 30 minutes, and just petrified. Like, what did I do? In shock. He's like, she cussed me out. And, and I was like, what is wrong with her? I said, Cameron, let me tell you something. I don't believe her. I know I've been told that I shouldn't talk to you like this, but I don't believe her. Something's not right. They even had sketch artists come in and draw this.
Yeah, it was an investigation.
Rapist. Yeah, and there was news alerts, and everybody in the community was on alert trail watches. I mean, it was like a community scare thing. I mean, it was not a hush hush, keep it in the family, keep the secret safe kind of a thing.
Well, if it was in the news.
Yeah. So I said, you need to go back to your house, and you need to get the laptop, you need to get into your cell phone, and you need to deep dive. Something is not right here. He was literally back in 15 minutes, pale as a ghost, sheet white, and was just like, oh my gosh. And I said, what? And he goes, I think I've just barely started, but like she was having an affair. She responded to all these ads with people on Facebook. And I mean, it just propelled into like this big, huge thing. And I just looked at him and I said, you've got to call the detective, because... So
she was cheating on her husband and
claimed that it was an assault, to hide it.
The scent off the path, She
I
made up a lie.
Oh, but it gets worse. Not only did she make up a lie, she beat herself up. Okay, when she showed up to the hospital, she had wounds and lacerations and her hair. I mean, this is what I'm trying to tell you. It's not normal behavior. So when it was identified that this was a farce, that's when the shit hit the fan. She came out of the hospital and ruthless. I mean, and he was just drowning, keeping his head above water, having to take care of the kids. She showed up at his work, and they worked and talked to the local bishop, and he decided that he'd work through it, and then it gets worse. And in this meantime, I'm like, I don't ever want to see her again. I never want to see her again. So this spanned over probably is still a 2-year period after this alleged rape, using the victim's money $30,000 in debt of restitution they had to pay back, right? And all of this time, and people that she worked with lied to over and over and over again.
This is a horrible
faked this.
person.
Yeah, horrible.
Well, I shouldn't say horrible.
Oh,
This
no,
is a
I'm okay with
person-
that. Thank you for your support.
This
'cause
is a person who is, when you kind of back away from it, it's very personal to you. I'm just on the outside listening.
Yeah.
That's a sick, mentally abusive, and mentally distressed person.
Yeah. The way that she could work it out in her mind to justify and say it's okay, and every day, every step of the way, and every hand that was given to her, I looked back at it and I just thought, I'm sick. I'm sick to have been a part and knowing that, and my brother's involved, my niece, my nephew. And like I said, they stayed together. There was more other events that were worse than that. Okay. But it had to come to a point where it had to come to a point where we were able to just support him, because this was his choice. I couldn't even come to holidays. I told my mom, if she's there, I'm not.
So this resentment kind of ran your whole show.
For 2 years.
That's all. Yeah.
So it wasn't like a trigger. It was literally like a shutdown. I do not like her. I don't like the word hate, but I could not even stomach knowing that she was here on earth. Okay. So when it comes down to it, I'm dark. I'm in that dark age, that dark period for 2 years. Okay. And she wasn't going anywhere. It was holidays and my niece and my nephew and all these interactions that I was just missing out on. But at the same time, I still would be there for my brother. It was such a limbo period for me, and having so much hate and anger built up, and I couldn't do anything about it. It just kept getting added on to it, piled on. With that, I just sat there one day and in contemplation of, I'm literally deteriorating, because it's manifesting itself in other areas. I'm angry all the time. And it was over this outside person that really I have to deal with.
Well, you don't, for one, but I
I
get what you're saying.
Yeah.
This resentment made you sick.
Very much so.
Emotionally.
Physically, too,
Okay.
to the point, to where I would get migraines and headaches, stomach cramps when knowing that she was there, or he would show up with these other horrible stories, which I'm going to leave out, because you think that it's sick and twisted that she can hit herself on the sidewalk in her head and make herself bleed and show up at the hospital. She's done a lot worse than that.
That's probably not someone who should be caring for children.
Well, you'd think that, but there's medication for that too, obviously. But with that being said, I was trapped. I was trapped with such bitterness, and my poor brother, I felt helpless. He didn't, though. And I watched through his example of just perseverance, trying.
What did he do? Did he go to therapy?
Well,
did he get some sort of? Okay.
They all did for the most part, but there was no remorse in her heart. She continued with other things to the point where it was finally for him to make that decision. But watching him through example softened me, and I was able to kind of one-sided let go of that resentment by forgiving. I never went to ask for it, because I knew in my heart of hearts that it wouldn't have been a good outcome. But I was trapped. So I had finally reached out to her and said in a text, because that's all I could stomach, is I have to let you go. I have to forgive you, because it's what I'm supposed to
How
be
did you
doing.
do that? We've qualified for what?
I felt empathy for her.
Okay.
I literally felt so sad that she was such in a state of unchangeable mind, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I knew about her childhood, I knew about her mother, and her mother was a piece too, and she lived meager, but she she continued and even elevated this cycle to where we all had to we were all in the wrath, but
we're going to come back. We're going to go on a little break.
Tina,
Yeah.
I felt sorry for her.
We're going to come back and talk about getting to that point. And I have an example or two.
Oy,
Actually.
oy, oy, vey.
This is Whack-A-Mole with Tina B and Charmaine G. Raw discussion about the messiness of life. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Whack-A-Mole. We welcome you back to Whack-A-Mole. Raw discussions about the messiness of life. Now, here are your hosts, Tina B and Charmaine G.
Hello. Hi, guys.
We're back talking about. Go ahead.
No, I seriously just want to jump in because I feel so vulnerable right now, and I feel like maybe
Jump in. You've been talking the whole time.
I know. I'm afraid though that I'm gonna get my mom after me after this, but
darling.
I'm not weighted. I feel weighted down even talking about this story, this part, just because I can't live like that. That's just all I want to say to the viewers. Apologize because we're gonna ramp it back up, but if it's really important to you and if it's something that you've battled with, it's real. It's real, and working through it is a constant thing. So thank you for my time of that experience.
You're welcome.
Sharing it.
So I spoke to my father a couple of times this last week, and I, for the listeners, I have had a back and forth relationship with my father. We've been estranged often. My 54 years of life has just been back and forth. You guys know the way I grew up, and there was separation, like coast to coast separation when my parents split up, and I didn't see my dad a lot. And there was just a lot of issues, a lot of stuff that they had going on. So I found out, my father called me a couple of weeks ago, and I had been feeling this feeling of things are just starting to fall away from me as far as resentments. And I wasn't necessarily holding on to resentments as much as I was putting up a gigantic guard to not be, but I'm conflicted because the resentments I have against the members of my family, not my little family, we're good, but my family my family of origin, the people that I grew up with, they had their own set of issues, as we all do. But I held some deep-seated resentment towards my dad. But then as the years have gone by, it has sloughed off a lot. There is, we've gotten to almost like the very core of it. So a lot of the stuff that was like, oh, he did this and that and this and that, a lot of it peeled away. But I was left with this core, do I trust him, I guess? Am I willing to trust him?
Yeah.
What
work has he put into it for it to not happen again?
All of that. So he called me and told me last week that he has colon cancer, and he had a tumor in his colon, and he had surgery yesterday, came out with flying colors.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So he's doing all right. He's pushing 80, and he's a pretty strong cat. He's up here, just really, he's a go-getter, and he carries resentments. It's really easy for me to see that. But let me get back on track. I had a moment last week where it just suddenly occurred to me. It's occurred to me a lot, but I followed it up with, it came from my head and went down into my heart and into my tummy, where I was able to take some action and ask for what I wanted and what I didn't want without feeling bad and guilty about it.
To work through? Yes.
I used to think, and I was grown up to believe, that your family is your family. You're not allowed to abandon them. Okay? On many levels. On the littlest of level, like leaving your sister at the park. I think I did that one. To a bigger level where and I always went back. And some people, I went back to that stuff, and I kept setting myself up to continue to be hurt. And I was like, why am I doing this? Okay. So when my dad called me and told me that, I sat with it for a little bit. And then somewhere, I guess last Thursday, he called me. No, I called him. None of that matters. I called him. It does, because I reached out to him, and I just started bawling. I mean, I was hysterical, and every resentment that I had concerning my father is gone.
Wow.
Yeah. Not like poof, gone. I mean, the stuff still happened. The what I had to do to get through it is still there. But I've done a lot of work, and there were a lot of times where I was like, well, I've done so much work. Okay, I've done step work in Alcoholics Anonymous. They make you do the resentment list. Look it up, the 4-step. You write your resentments, the cause and effect, and then somewhere over in like the 4th column, you figure out 3rd and 4th column your part in that stuff and what we're ready to do about it, I guess.
Right.
And the steps that follow, yes.
We could say anything we want, but it's follow through.
It is. And so I my dad was always like within the top 3. I've done a lot of 4-steps and a lot of looking at my resentments, and he was always in the top 5 at least. Well, it was usually men right in that area.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's that. And then when that happened and I started crying, and it was for 1 second, it was uncomfortable because I'm not super close to him like that right now.
Yeah.
And I was literally like, I was just hyperventilating. And he was like, do you want me to let you go? And I said, no. Like, that was the first time in a long time, and I don't want to start crying, that I needed my dad. Allowed myself to feel that and need him. So he stayed on the phone with me, and I just cried, and we were talking, and he was like, it's a whole new relationship.
Yeah.
now.
I can imagine when you came to work and you had mentioned it, my immediate thought was him. You know, we've shared, and I know that your childhood, your upbringing, your relationships, you're detached, and all of these things that built you and how you carry your own relationships now. But I thought about him because I looked at you very, very sincerely and said, can you imagine what he's going through? Like, at this stage in his life, facing painful, terminal, alone. And
he does have a wife, but his kids are not, on both sides, his and ours. We've not, ever since my mom died when I was 16 years old, well, and it was before that because she left him before that. Mm-hmm. We moved away from him before that. And there's just always been the whole United States between us physically. And then there's always been just this conditioning. He's a piece of shit. It was easier to not like him and put him in a cubbyhole with a lock on it, or a safe more, than it was to actually, but I've spent enough time in therapy and doing 4-steps and researching this stuff because I wanted to be happy. And what happened was I now realize that I can be happy with him when I was wanting to be happy without him.
Yeah. And you may go through a stage to where you're still happy with him.
My legs are sticking to the seat. It's leather, and I'm wearing a dress. I just went.
I hate that. That was so impulsive. I loved it. You may go through a point where you guys are starting to reconnect on a level, and you nurture that relationship. You can still be in that good place and still be working through those things though too. It's not a matter of like, okay, now this line, we just crossed it, now we don't go back. And you just witnessed that with me, because I really do feel like I let that go, and in that full cloud that was hanging over me, and knew I had to persevere. It wasn't for other people. I didn't do it for other people. I literally did it for me. And that's where I think a lot of people don't maybe genuinely work through resentment, because they're doing it for the greater good. They wanted to be the higher road, turn the other cheek. Your mom asked you to. I
think we live with resentments as we live with many things, because there's a payoff in it somewhere for us.
What the heck?
And I don't know. I mean, and for me, I think the payoff was just, I got so familiar living with resentments, and without having knowledge of the other side of it, I that's all I knew. So there was comfort in it. As sad as that sounds, there was comfort in that.
Well, you found your peace and your conclusion because you didn't You didn't have the other side to worry about. I'm proud of you because it does take, and you got to do it in this lifetime, it does take to see the other person. Because you do carry the weight, you do carry the emotions. Who knows what the other person's carrying too? And that's one of the biggest things that I was reading up on, of how, like, what causes them in relationships. It doesn't have to be just a spouse. It can be any relationship, because we're social species. I mean, we're all meant to connect with people, and we connect in different levels. Family for me, though, is probably the ultimate level, like the ones that you actually will give your investment and your time to, and yourself. But sometimes that doesn't mean the word family means that they deserve it.
Well, and there was the older my children get, the more wise I get with every season that passes in my life. I look at the way that I intentionally raised my children was not congruent with the relationships I have with my family, my siblings and my dad. So I was like, I have to reconcile this and make sense of it, because my daughters are watching me, and not that I have to do something I'm unwilling to do, but those two things had to intersect, because my daughters are best friends. 15 and 22. Who would have thunk that? They are best friends. And they argue too. And they get on each other's nerves. But they are so close. And I'm like, I don't have that. I've tried to have it. I don't have it. So not just the sibling relationship, but what I give and mean to my children, at least what they tell me I do. Talking to my father over the last few days, he's like a little kid right now. You know, like he's so infatuated with being my dad. and it blows me away, you know, like
This is why we chose this topic. I know. Because it's a beautiful thing when you get to see this
the
opportunity.
Fruits of that, to have that. You know, I lay in bed, I did a lot of I am with it. I laid in bed at night and I don't sleep well. And when I don't take something to aid me in that sleep, which is just like like a sleep aid or no,
I'm just kidding.
No, it's not. But I'll take something to calm me down, melatonin, whatever it is. But I also try to not do that. I also try to self-soothe myself to sleep. So I was like, okay, breathing in the I am statements. I am loving. I am a daughter to this man. I said his name. I'm not going to say it now. I am honest in my relationship with him. I even said things that I was hoping for, you know, to manifest them in the I am. So and then it came to its fruition, and I didn't go, okay, I'm going to call my dad and see what the I am is doing for me today. It wasn't like that. It was more like I just had this overwhelming feeling that he has a wife, he's not alone, but one of his children should be honoring him. And why not it be me? You
That's
know?
beautiful.
So I told him that let's spend this. He's going to be 80 in May. And he FaceTimed me last night. It was the funniest thing because it was like, he had the phone like right here. And he could see me. Oh, you're so pretty, honey. I love you. La, la, la. And I was just like, and he was in his hospital bed. And I caught a glimpse of him every once in a while, and he had the covers like pulled up to here. And it was just funny. I was just like, I would be missing this right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a trip out to see him soon because it's important to me. It's almost like a rebirth of my relationship with my father. And I may have to parent him at this point.
True. True.
I have intentions of doing nothing but positive things in his life from this point forward, whatever that looks like, because it feels so much better than to re-feel the character defects that I felt somebody owed me an amends for. It's just a made up, awful idea.
It really is.
Somebody's going to owe us something. You owe me something because you made me mad as a child. First of all, that statement itself is you made me blank has zero power for me. When I hear somebody say I made you, I immediately default. To dig deeper. Go pull that scab off. There's going to be some blood, but there's something there to see, So that's I doing the 12 steps, I have realized what an asshole I have been. For real.
Well, I mean, it's how you had to go through the healing process. I mean, of course, grief manifests itself in stages to where they can toggle back and forth, but anger is the first one. And when you're angry, how do you act? I mean, I act like an asshole. If I'm actually sad, I act like an asshole too. So, but that's because I'm sad mad. That's what I always call it. I'm so sad mad right now because I can't cry. You know how I said, how did you work through this? And you did the same thing. You're reflecting on your dad as a child and like childlike and just the innocence that's being brought back to how you view him and things like that is where the roots are taking seed. They're seeding into the ground right now. And that's the benefit of that.
I can remember the love I had for my father as a child because that's been absent from my heart. Well, that's not true. I think it's been in there. I've just chosen not to look at it. Mm-hmm. I've chosen to just put the lid on it. And if it creeps out, then I slam the lid because I don't want to get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
it's
now
self-preservation. It could be literally maybe you feeling like, I don't know. Did you feel selfish? Like I always felt like I'm carrying this and I am so pissed off at them. They do not deserve this. It was almost like if you look on the outside in, I represented as being selfish. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, totally. You get completely consumed, self-consumed.
You're taking care of your own emotions.
Yes. Huh? So there comes a time when stuff starts to fall away and then there's this golden ball of truth and you're like, okay, he has feelings. I've hurt him. Like it stops being about you.
Yep.
And you start thinking, how can I serve this person? In this particular case, this man, my father, in the latter days of his life. Mm-hmm. How can I best do that? So now I just sit and wait for answers. And on a given day, it's just me calling him. It's me texting him. It's me just closing my eyes and sending good vibes to him,
Good old dad. And you know what? He's never going to forget that. And that's what he's reaching for right now. Psychologist Scott Bay, on one of these articles that I was reading.
The psychologist what?
Scott Bay is his name.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Scott Bay.
Scott Bay. Scott Bay.
Scott Baio.
I loved him. I crushed on him so hard. Charles and Charles.
Joni loves Chachi.
I love it. How am I going to come back down off of that? I loved this quote that I was reading in the article because verbatim, it's how I feel and how I handle any type of negative buildup of emotions. I once thought of resentment as a failure in problem solving, but now I think it's a battle for empathy. Meaning I'm battling to empathize with people, meaning because I'm self-soothing, I'm taking care of myself. How can I work through this? Problem solving. Sometimes it's not logical, everyone. Sometimes your logical thinking of problem solving is not going to work when it comes to resentment.
No, and sometimes the emotion is so high and hits in such a deep place that you can't see the truth. I can't see the truth. And I have to be able to confide in, like Greg, my rock star husband who grew up polar opposite of the way that I did. However, he's just like, okay, let's kind of sort through this. Let's look at this. And maybe it's not that way, Tina. Like sometimes he'll say to me, maybe it's not that way, Tina. But I'm so headstrong and so
saying that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I mean, that's usually when I roll my eyes. I usually just go, like you know everything. When he knows lots of things.
He really does. And I mean, I think that's his way of saying, can you look at it a different way? In all relationships, the 6 reasons resentment creeps in is number 1, always having to be right. Number 2, taking advantage of others. So when I read these out and it's not just what's happening to you, it's maybe what you're doing to other people. And that's why you may be distant and not have very many people in your life. And I say this only because if you really want to grow as a person, resentment is a two-way street. And we all can project that on other people because we've had the experience. Number 3, feeling put down all the time. I mean, you can have that relationship with your boss. Your boss does not give you the accreditation, or they don't make you feel like you're valid. 4, unrealistic expectations.
That is the freaking biggest one. And they tackle that in the steps, in the 12 and 12 and in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm sorry
to yourself
mention,
or other
that.
people put them on you?
They talk about that at length, about having these unrealistic expectations. I expect that when I expect my husband to know when I'm hurting, but I never say anything to him.
Yes.
But he's so close to me.
And
he's so close to me that he goes, "What's up?"
All
I'm
the time?
I'm fine. Not all the time, but he knows when something's bugging me for sure. And sometimes I hate that he knows that, so I just go, "I'm fine. Who do you think you are?"
Yeah.
You don't know me. La 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 la.
You're not
I
getting
refuse to. Yeah, exactly. But there's unrealistic expectations, is expecting something to go. Well, if you are going to confront somebody or have a deep discussion, you write the script in your head. I'm going to say this, and then he's going to say that, or she, and then I'm going to say this, and then this is going to happen, and it's going to be just so wonderful, and we're all just going to be in love, and it's just going to be so
Yeah,
great.
it doesn't go that way.
And then you sit down and your plan. Meanwhile, God's up there going, go, quick.
Yeah, let's see how this one plays out.
Yeah, exactly. And then it doesn't play out that way. So when you have an unrealistic expectation, it so easily leads to resentment.
Oh, it does.
If you let it.
It is a choice. How we let other people make us feel is a choice every step of the way. I took this unrealistic expectation of the roots of how I always felt like I was trying to prove myself to my mother and things, because I wanted that validation. It was unrealistic how I was putting that pressure on me, and maybe she really wasn't doing it, but I just, that round robin, that effect that I wasn't getting. Number 5, not being heard.
Also a huge one for me. Mm-hmm. Hence the podcast. I worked at a radio station for a little while in the Coachella Valley, and I loved it because I could say whatever I wanted. And if they didn't want to listen,
turn it off.
They could go away. I like to think they were listening. My ego likes to think that the world was listening. And nobody was saying, it wasn't a back and forth conversation. It was just me, and I think that really comes from a lack of being heard and validated as a child. Yeah. I mean, I remember, and I say that stuff and it makes me sound like I hated my parents, which I don't. No. I didn't. We just came from a different generation, and there wasn't a lot of I just remember the kids were over there and the adults were doing adult things. They were smoking and playing games and poker and cards and rummy and playing gin and talking about adult stuff. And, I'd always go under the table or buy my mom to give her a hug, and they'd be like, bugger off, get out of here, go over there. So I don't know how I got off on that, but
Not feeling heard.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. And I remember my dad used to tickle me. My poor dad. I love you, Dad. Aww. He used to tickle me when I didn't want to be tickled. And my brother would hold my arms down and he would tickle me, and I would laugh and laugh and laugh until I was crying. I was like, I can't, it's hurting me. Stop. And he just didn't.
Because how dads can be like that. Pleasure on that.
Well, he was enjoying himself, but I sure as hell wasn't. So and I remember being resentful about that. Going in the room and going,
"Why isn't he listening to me,
motherfucker?" I mean, as a kid, I would say that stuff in my head all the time. That motherfucker.
Ding.
Sean's not with us today. I mean, you are, but when
Sean's not taking part actively, he's being the producer, which is what
that is good.
His function here is.
And friend/producer, come back soon. I miss you.
Here he comes. Here we go.
You called me friend.
I did.
Oh,
that was the softest.
That's so nice.
Everybody look at Charmaine's hair. Go like this, Charmaine.
What's wrong with it?
You adjusted your thing and it just turned into this big whoosh. It looked like a big bump.
I look
you.
like I got the
See, you
TDB
can-
bump.
No, you can do
yeah.
that. You can pull your
Boy.
hair away. You have that face. I need my hair to
Around your face.
Yeah.
I honestly have never give a shit. I mean, again, we talked
I
about
am
leaving
going
the
to call
house.
you out on that.
I have to tell you, by the end of the day, I don't really give
She
a
cares.
shit.
She doesn't want to care, but she cares.
I've gotten so much better this last year to where I'm like, it is what it is. But I try. It's not like I'm not going to put effort towards it. Without going down that rabbit hole, the last and sixth thing is being late. I have to say to you, I think I'm going to be late for my own funeral. I'm not going to lie to you.
You're not the only one.
I wish, and I will continue to try, but I've been told by somebody that I very much care about that it's a sign of disrespect. It makes me feel like you don't respect my time. And I'm like,
Totally.
oh my gosh.
That kind of
Resentment,
pisses
everyone.
me off when you
Work
pull that
through
out
it.
and throw it on the
Look at
table.
him
That
as a
card, psh, I don't
a
like it.
child. Empathy is the resolution.
You've been listening to Whack-A-Mole with Tina B and Charmaine G. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Watch us on YouTube and subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Join us next time for, well, whatever may happen with Tina B and Charmaine G on Whack-A-Mole. This has been a production from a podcast studio.